Welcome back to Blasting Off with Bootstrap. This is Level 5, Section 2, Dropping Down from Orbit. We have this amazing navigation that we created and even got working on mobile sites. But once we let other people on our team start using it, something goes completely wrong. There's too many links in our navigation bar. No one wants to read all of that, but it's nice to have some of these links somewhere more pronounced than our footer. What can we do to clean up our navigation bar? One thing we could do is group together a number of these links and have them show up when our About link is clicked. This might sound a little similar to our collapse functionality we showed before. The difference here is that our expanded navigation will be shown on top of other content rather than pushing the rest of the page down. This creates this drop-down effect that we want, where it can be opened only when needed. How would this work in our extra small view though? We probably don't want our dropdown showing up on top of our other elements in our already very limited screen real estate. Well, what if it looked something like this, where if they expand our About link, it still shows like the rest of our navigation? I think this is something we can work with. Let's start by adding that little drop-down icon to our existing About link. Here's our nav list so far with some of the links in there. What happens right now if someone clicks on this About link? Well, right now, they'll be taken to an entirely different page. We'll need to change that so they stay on the same page when About is clicked. We can do that really fast by linking to this hash sign instead. This means that we're linking to an anchor on the current page. In this case, it's at the very top of the page. This will work for now and stop the link from going to a new page. Next, we'll want to add that little drop-down arrow after the About text. Remember from our collapse graphic in our header, we didn't want to use a glyph icon up here in the navigation bar? Well, that also holds true for this one as well. Instead, we'll use a span with a class of caret. This will add that little down arrow icon. I'd say we're off to a good start. Let's see how to make the rest of our links show up only when this About link is clicked. Our About link is looking good, but what about those links that we want to add to it, like the ones for Contact Us and Blog? Well, we can group these within our list item for About by creating an entirely new list inside of it and moving all of our links there. Now our navigation is logically grouped by the 3 links we want to show at the top of the page. But if we open this up in a browser, these links will always show up. They'll also have these nested link bullet icons next to them. Let's start by hiding this list on page load. We can use a class provided by the Bootstrap dropdown library, which will produce the style of a dropdown menu. This single class does quite a lot. The only thing we'd see right now, though, is that our UL will actually be completely hidden when the page loads, with no way for us to expand it. In order to expand it, we're going to need to add some behavior, and not just style, to our About link. Let's review how to use Bootstrap JavaScript plugins. Actually, we can use the dropdown plugin the same 2 ways as our Bootstrap collapse plugin, either by adding data attributes that we add to our HTML, or by writing JavaScript. Again, we'll be adding data attributes to our HTML, which is by far the easiest way to use the Bootstrap dropdown plugin. Let's see what data attributes we need to add. Similar to the collapse plugin, we'll need to toggle the existence of a CSS class on and off. We'll actually use the same data attribute we used for the collapse plugin, data-toggle, but in this case, we'll specify dropdown. When the page loads and the Bootstrap JavaScript runs, it'll see this value and add the dropdown behavior to our About link. So what should happen when this link is clicked? Well, we aren't removing a class that's already added, like with the collapse plugin. Instead, clicking on About will add a class of open to the parent of the clicked link. In this case, what that means is that the li element, which is the parent element of our About link, well, it'll get a class of open. Bootstrap has some styles so that if a drop-down menu is inside of an element with a class of open, we'll actually see the drop-down menu, which in this case is exactly what we want. Not too bad for just adding one data attribute. If we really wanted to, we could actually start the drop-down menu as open by adding a class of open to that parent li element. Now, when we click on About for the first time, the Bootstrap JavaScript plugin will remove the open class, hiding our dropdown. If we view the page as a whole, we can see that it's much clearer now with only 3 navigation items rather than those 8 links that were up there before. But there's one thing missing. There were some dividers between our links within our dropdown. One way to add those might be adding some CSS and maybe adding a border-bottom to some of our links. Well, there's a much easier way to do that by editing our HTML markup. Let's see what that looks like. We can add some empty li elements at the places where we want dividers to go. In this case, we'll split out these links into 3 groups. Let's think of them as internal links, social media links, and then our blog, which can stand on its own. These empty li elements will be spacers between our links that we'll add a class of divider to. If we check our drop-down menu out now, we'll see a very clear separation between our link groups. This is a small change in our HTML, but huge for usability. How would our drop-down menu work for users that don't have JavaScript enabled? Well, right now, if they click on About, they're not going to see anything. Nothing's going to happen and no drop-down is going to be shown. The page will scroll to the very top due to that hash sign, but our drop-down menu will never be seen. What we want is for our page to gracefully degrade for older browsers, still giving those visitors with older software a good experience of our content. To do that, we'll actually need to change our href back to pointing to about.html instead of the hash sign. If the user doesn't have JavaScript enabled, now they'll be taken to the About page, and on there we could drive people to the other links that were previously nested. If they do have JavaScript enabled, they will see the dropdown, but then they'll immediately still be taken to the About page. Not exactly something we want to happen. In order to prevent that, we can add one last data attribute, data-target. This is the href that will be used when JavaScript is enabled. In this case, we're going to set it to that hash sign just like we were doing before. Now, for users whose browsers work with JavaScript, things will appear just as expected. That's the end of this section and the end of this course. It's time for you to drop down into the code and complete a few challenges. Thanks for taking Blasting Off with Bootstrap and for using Code School. I'm Adam Fortuna, and we'll see you real soon.